Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination, but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Got my bags packed, I'm on a roll. I'm heading out there and I'm ready to go. I'm looking real good in my passport photo. Oh, no.
Amateur Traveler, episode 654. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about beaches, snorkeling and scuba, slavery, sugar plantations, and even an ostrich farm as we go to Curaçao in the Caribbean. Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Let's talk about Curaçao. I'd like to welcome to the show Wendy Blumenstein-Elliott from AdventurousRetirement.com, who has come to talk to us about Curaçao. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. I'm glad to be here.
So what is your connection with Curaçao?
My husband and I went to Curaçao for the first time about 15 years ago, and we've been back 10 times
Oh,
since.
wow. Okay.
And in the last 5 years, we've spent at least 5 weeks we just got home from 6 weeks in Curaçao.
I have been there one day. You have been there much more than I have. Why should someone go to Curaçao? What keeps bringing you back?
Well, Curaçao is just a beautiful multicultural island, and it's outside of the hurricane belt. The weather is, I think, perfect. It ranges from 75 to 86 degrees almost every day. It's partly cloudy, partly sunny, and you don't want it to be sunny all the time. You're so close to the equator. And you've got those beautiful ocean breezes. And it's a great balance between the sea and the activities around the sea, as well as wonderful places to hike with mountains. And also the food is excellent. It's a combination of Dutch, Creole, African. There's just so many things about Curaçao that I love.
And in terms of seeing Curaçao, so we've talked, let's put this on the map first. So we're talking about an island, as you said, outside the hurricane belt, but that was because it's in the Caribbean. Other islands in the Caribbean are in the hurricane belt, but here you're closer to South America. You're south of Cuba, down in the ABCs, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curaçao. And
Exactly.
It's a small enough island. Are we going to base ourselves in one place and then do day trips?
Yes, that's the way I would recommend
Okay.
doing it, but that's just because of how I like to travel. I like to get settled in one place, and everything is within an hour, depending on where you are in the island, maybe less than an hour.
Okay.
I do want to say one more thing about where it's located. It's 50 miles off the coast of Venezuela,
Yep.
but it's a Dutch island, so it has
Hmm.
nothing to do with Venezuela.
Right. It is part of the Netherlands. So
Yes.
where would you recommend that we home base?
So it's interesting. For the previous 9 times up until this year, we have always stayed all the way west on the furthest western part of the island. And we always loved it. It's remote and beautiful and more wild. This time we stayed just west of downtown Willemstad, which is an UNESCO World Heritage Site, and that's the main town. And I have to say, that's the place to stay if you want to see the island in a week, because you're 45 minutes from the west side, a half hour from the east side. You can get to just about anything within 45 minutes.
Excellent. And then what kind of itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
So I assume when people go to the islands, they want beaches. So I'm going to start with the beaches.
It's probably a pretty good place to go if you're looking for beaches and a pretty bad place to go if you're not.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of other things to do there, actually.
Okay.
My husband never goes to the beach, but he
Wow,
stays
okay.
busy. I would recommend spending 2 to 3 days exploring the northwestern part of the island and going to the western beaches. So if you go as far west as you can to the furthest beach, that's called Playa Calqui, and that's on the Allison in Wonderland dive site or reef, which is considered one of the most beautiful. And the dive operation, if you're a diver, that's a great place to go. The dive shop is Go West. They are the only ones that go to Guatemala. Guatemala is considered one of the top 25 dive sites in the Caribbean. I've been diving all over the world. It's my second favorite in the world.
Okay, and I have to ask what your favorite is then.
I don't remember the exact name of the site. It's off of Taveuni, which is an out island of Fiji.
Okay, excellent.
So on the other side of the world, basically.
Okay.
So there's so many things to do if you go west first. So you can go to the beach at Playa Calqui, enjoy the beach some. You can rent snorkel equipment at Go West. And I also recommend if you get there early because it gets hot, ask them at the dive shop for directions to hike out to Guatemala if you like to do walks. It's a flat hike. It's not totally even, but it's a fairly easy hike. It's somewhat long, but you get out to the wildest point of the island where everything comes together from the sea. So there's actually 3 different currents that come together. It's such a gorgeous spot. And to walk all the way out to the sea, you're way up above the sea, and you're on what was once Coral. So you could do that walk if
And you say
like hiking.
kind of long. Are we talking, we're not talking days, so we're talking a couple hours?
Yeah, to walk out and back a couple hours. So
Okay.
if you get there at 8 in the morning, you can get back to the beach by 10.
All right.
Generally, it's a great beach to go for a swim, but if you want to see a different beach just down the road, and again, ask them at the Go West dive shop. And I also recommend renting your equipment from them if you don't have it. They'll also just rent you a vest if you're afraid to snorkel and you want to stay on the surface, because the next
Sure.
beach down is a not to miss. It's called it's got 3 names: Playa Grande, Playa Pescado, and Fisherman's Beach.
Okay.
And pescado means fish, and the fishermen are there. It's a working fisherman's beach, but it's a free beach, and they do rent chairs and umbrellas. The thing about this beach is there are turtles that are always there, guaranteed every day between 11 and 4. Because the fishermen are there cleaning the fish, and they're there to take the scraps.
Okay, got it. Okay. I wondered why they had such regular hours. Okay.
Yes, they have regular. It's amazing, and so you can be in the water in the wild with the turtles. It is exhilarating.
Excellent. Before we get too far away from your first dive spot, your second favorite in the world, what makes that one among your top 2?
Well, it is one of the most beautiful sites with corals just jammed together, all kinds of colors, hard corals and soft corals. And because of the different currents, the soft corals flowing in the currents. You get all kinds of fish there. Last year we were there in July, and pilot whales came by. So that's really unusual. So you get all kinds of things there. We sent somebody there who had never heard of it that we dove with earlier in our trip, and he sent us a video of the pilot whales that came by just last month when he was there. So you never know what you'll see there. It's because the corals are so beautiful. I also know that you can often get glimpses of schools of squid, and they're so curious. They always come around to see what's going on with the divers.
Excellent.
So I just love it because of the beauty and the animals. In the past, we found seahorses on that site too. There are 3 seahorses right at Playa Kalki. So there's lots of interesting underwater activities on Curaçao.
Excellent. And then you took us to your second beach where we were snorkeling. Where's next?
If you like that beach, you can stay there. You can bring a picnic lunch there. Sometimes the stands are open where the locals, you can get grilled fish there and so on. Or you can continue going to the next beach. And the next beach is a pair of beaches. It's Little Kinip and Grand Kinip. And I think that Grand Kinip is one of the most beautiful beaches, if not the most beautiful beach on Curaçao. It is a free beach, so you can go to that beach for free, bring something to sit on, or you can rent chairs. The thing is, there are no real services there. There are bathrooms. They cost a florin each to use them, but there's no food or drink, so definitely bring your food or drink if you want to spend time there. So we have Grand Kinip, which is the most beautiful beach, and then we have Little Kinip, which is a great beach for snorkeling. So if you want to spend part of the day snorkeling, I would go to Little Kinip for that. And from there, you can continue down to the beaches. There's several beaches. There's Jeremy, which is a tiny little beach. And one time when we went to Jeremy, they were filming a clothing commercial there. And you will find that on a lot of the beaches in Curaçao because they're so beautiful. They are used for filming.
Okay. I could see that.
If you go from Jeremy, then I would recommend going to Playa Lagoon. Again, a smaller beach. There's lots of services and restaurants at Playa Lagoon. You have 2 dive or snorkel shops to choose from there. And I love snorkeling there. Even close to shore, almost every time I've snorkeled, I've seen squid, which I find very interesting because they fluoresce. And they're very curious. They're interested in what's going on with the people.
Okay.
You can rent chairs there at Playa Lagoon, and it's also a free beach. It might be the end of the day for you by this point in time. But if it's not, you can continue down the west coast, going back towards Willemstad, the main town. And Porto Marie is a beautiful beach. It's a wonderful beach to spend a day at. Porto Marie has a restaurant, they have a dive shop, and it does have an entry fee. It's $3 per person. Okay. And then you also have a chair fee if you rent chairs. It's a gorgeous beach. And it's got a double reef, so the snorkeling and the diving there are also great.
Okay. And when you say a double reef, so it's well protected from the surf is really the bottom line there.
Well, so the double reef, you're picturing it like parallel to the shore.
I was picturing it parallel to the shore, yes.
Yeah, and actually it's not. It's perpendicular.
Okay.
So this reef system that we're actually talking about snorkeling and diving on is the second largest barrier reef in the world. It's the reef that goes down by Belize as well. Okay. So you're going to find a lot of life on this reef. We've seen changes in reefs everywhere in the world, which is unfortunate. And that's another subject I can get into because we do volunteer and work on Curaçao with the Coral Restoration Foundation restoring the reefs.
How does one restore a reef?
Well, that's a whole big subject, Chris.
I would assume so. I assume one needs the coral themselves to actually restore the reef, but... Yeah,
so you start with little corals. Right now, what's happening around the world, and it started out of one of the universities in the Keys through the Coral Restoration Foundation. So the elkhorn and the staghorn corals are the ones that protect our shores, and they're the ones that mostly have been wiped out. You do find them some places. They definitely are prevalent on the west coast of Australia, and they're very healthy there, which is nice. But in a lot of the world, they are not. However, they are being replanted, and first they have to be regrown. So you have little pieces. They create trees out of rebar and PVC pipe, and the different pieces of coral are hung on the trees, and they grow from there. They have to be maintained every week. And then once they're big enough, they are taken off and put on a structure plate that's into the floor of the sea. And they're zip tied, and they create reefs.
Cool. Excellent. Getting us back from reef restoration to vacation. We were at a parallel reef. Where are we going next?
What I'd like to do is also suggest, before we go to the next beach, I'd like to suggest some restaurants along the route.
Sounds great.
So if you're not taking a picnic lunch, or if you want to have dinner along the route and you're still really far northwest near Cristóbal Mountain, so that's fairly close to Playa Grande, the fisherman's beach. My favorite restaurant on the island is in the park, and it's open from Tuesday through Sunday for lunch and dinner. And it's considered local food, and it's a combination of African, Dutch, Creole. And I just want to just mention a couple things because I think it's very different and absolutely fantastic. So African peanut soup with bananas.
Okay.
Coconut sea bass.
Okay.
Chicken saffron, just to give you an idea. It was rated by TripAdvisor the second best restaurant on the island. And I think that it stays there because they changed their name and they moved, and people don't even know where they are anymore. So they're called Cactus Cafe, and they are in the park. You have to actually go into the Cristóbal Park through the gate. You don't have to pay to go into the park to go to the restaurant. I recommend if you spend the day there, make reservations and have dinner. Dinner just around sunset is amazing with all of the birds that come by. The parrots are all coming home for the night, and they'll be flying by you. The peacocks roost in the trees. It's just amazing to listen to all the beautiful birds coming home for the evening while you're having your dinner. And also to watch them.
All right.
And I would say that if you're not there at dinner time, then you should come at dinner times one day to experience it. So another place to eat, if you're further down, if you're down by Porto Marie, one of the places to eat would be at Character. Character is a restaurant located in Coral Estates, which is on the same road as the Porto Marie beach. And it overlooks the water. It's a beautiful setting. And I have not eaten there, but everybody I have talked to likes it.
Okay. And when you talk about being the other side of the island, so the island is roughly 60 miles long. So the other side of the island is from one end of the island to the other is a little over an hour.
Well, because they're smaller roads and they go slower, I would say if you're on the far western tip and you want to go to the far eastern tip, it would probably take you 2 hours.
Okay. You and Google are disagreeing with that, but I trust you better.
Okay. And it just depends on what part you want to go to. I mean, if you go to the eastern part where there are all the restaurants and the beaches, that's going to be an hour and 5 minutes from the far western point.
Got it.
It just depends on which part. So anyway, if you're coming back towards Willemstad, Character is a good place to eat. And if you're on the main road, within 10 minutes from Willemstad, I love a Dutch restaurant called De Boevrou. And De Boevrou is in a little town called Grootberg, B-E-R-G.
Mm-hmm. Near the airport.
And they have very typical Dutch food, and then they have wonderful grilled skewers that they hang from these little, I don't know, like trees with your sauces. So I would recommend De Boevrou. I would also say don't order fish stew. I wouldn't order fish stew anywhere on the island. Fish goes bad very quickly, and it's hot.
Huh. And fish stew is made with older fish, is what you're thinking?
I imagine that fish stew is often used with leftovers, right?
Uh-huh.
So once you have that and you have the heat, I know too many people who have gotten sick over the years.
Interesting. Okay.
So I just would stay away from it.
Ah bon chien. Bonjour, je suis Theo, a tour leader with Explore. And this is Punti. He's helping us find truffles under the trees next to this beautiful vineyard. Maybe for tomorrow's cooking class? We call it semi-heure. Parfait. Semi-o'clock. Not everyone gets to enjoy a Bordeaux sunset this way, but you will if you explore. No, Punti. Search exploreworldwide.com and don't just travel. Explore.
Now, if you're still continuing and it's not sunset yet, and just so you know, because you're so close to the equator, sunset happens usually between 6:30 and 7 every day of the year. If you're near Blue Bay, and Blue Bay is where we stayed this year, it's a resort community. I would venture to say it is the nicest resort community on the entire island. It's got a golf course, beautiful beach. There's several pools throughout the community. So if you can rent there and you're willing to pay the prices, or you can get a deal like we did, I would recommend Blue Bay.
Okay.
It's beautiful, comfortable, and it's very convenient to everything. Now, you have to pay to go to the beach at Blue Bay, but not at sunset, because sunset's happy hour and there's a bar on the beach. So you have to go through the gate and tell them you're going to the bar or the restaurant. And that's fine. You just have to wait in line until it's your turn.
Uh-huh.
So that's a gorgeous place to see the sunset and to have happy hour. It's also I think very reasonably priced for happy hour. I mean, elsewhere on the island at happy hour, I've paid $6 for a beer. And here I paid anywhere from $2 to $3.50.
Oh,
so I think
okay.
US. So I think that's pretty reasonable compared to other places. And it's a gorgeous setting.
Well, and one of the advantages of sunset is you will get some cruise ship traffic in Curaçao, but a lot of it will be gone by sunset.
That's right. Although there are some cruise ships that come in at 1 and leave around 9. And I've actually had people contact me after seeing my articles on the web on the beaches. And they're sort of afraid to drive around after dark because they don't know the island and they're not staying there. So they tend to want to be back at the ship if they don't have a driver for sunset.
I did not get the impression. I did not drive in Curaçao, but I did take a car in Curaçao because we did an excursion from a cruise ship. And I didn't get the impression the driving was going to be that bad at all.
No, it's
like driving in Holland.
Fact,
I mean,
I encouraged
that's
her.
not difficult to do.
No, it's very easy. It's just like we drive. There's one main road if you're going west.
Yeah.
When you go east through Willemstad and then continuing east, the roads are very confusing. So I recommend downloading the maps of the island while you have Wi-Fi, and then you can use your downloaded maps on your phone.
In case you don't have a data service, yeah.
Before we had smartphones, years ago when we went, we got lost often. And we didn't really get to see much of the east side because we were always lost. So definitely download your maps.
Well, and let me give you a couple tips there for those of you who have either T-Mobile or Google Fi. You'll probably have data access and you won't have as big an issue in general where you go because you'll have over 100 countries that are covered. We did a recent trip to Asia and we had T-Mobile and my daughter had Google Fi and both worked quite often and well. The other thing that I would say is if you don't and you want to download maps, I really like the maps.me app for the phone where you can download all the maps for the ABCs or maps for certain states or countries, and that works really well for online maps. It works better, I think, than the Google Maps download because it's more of a one and done. Where am I going to go? Download the maps before I leave home. It's very easy.
We always have used Google Maps, and for us, it has worked in Curaçao. But if there's a better way, great.
Excellent. Where to next? And one thing I'm curious about, we've covered a lot of beaches. We haven't said what your husband's been doing this whole time while you've been at the beach, but you hinted that he's finding plenty to do without going to the beach.
Yeah. Well, he's our technologist and our photographer, And so he is often working on pictures or putting together videos. And he is very happy sitting on the veranda in the breezes. He's also a diver. So he'll spend time at the dive shop. I'm a diver too. I often go with him, but there are times when I don't, especially if we have other people with us who aren't divers.
Well, I guess one of the questions I'm asking, though, is for the non-beach days where I don't feel like going to a beach day, what would I do in Curaçao?
I recommend going early in the morning to Cristóbal Mountain.
Okay.
You should really be there by 7:30 because it does get very hot. And if you like to hike or climb, hiking to the top of the mountain, you will get the most gorgeous views of the entire island.
Okay.
The island is arid. It's like Arizona. It's like the desert. But there's desert flowers, and that's really beautiful. So I recommend Cristóbal for hiking. Then there's several other places. Hafi Pasteur for hiking out to the north side of the island, and that's also on the west. So it's very near Cristóbal.
Okay.
And then it also, if you continue west from Cristóbal, on the right-hand side, it's called Chetaboca. And it's this beautiful sea views, and the ocean just comes up in these pistils. And then there's underground caves where the water comes through. So it's a beautiful place to see. Don't forget your camera.
Okay.
There's some museums along the way there. Actually, the Sauvenet Museum in Cristóbal gives you a lot about the culture of the island and the peoples of the island.
Okay.
The land houses are very well known as part of the history of the island. And what land houses are, well, they were the plantation houses, and they were built high on the hill so that they could communicate with the land house on either side of them. And they were communicating about if there was going to be an uprising by the slaves. But ironically, what ended up happening is the slaves used them to actually escape. And so, speaking of what else to do on land, there's the caves that are near the airport, which are really interesting to see. And the caves are where the slaves hid out when they escaped. Also, if you are interested in the culture and the history and don't want to hike, then going into town, into Willemstad, there's many museums. There's the Slave Museum. So this was one of the main places where the slaves were brought and then sold to different countries through Curaçao. So the Slave Museum and the history of the slaves is there. There's a maritime museum and the history of the shipping industry. So the Dutch West Indies started in Curaçao.
Okay. The Dutch West Indies Company.
Yes. There are many different museums and galleries. There's a couple land houses that are galleries. I don't know if you know the name Nina Sanchez.
I do not.
Okay, Nina Sanchez I think she was a Miss America winner many years ago.
Okay.
And she's from Curaçao, and she bought a land house. She's an artist, and so her artwork is sold from this incredible land house, and the sculpture leading up to it is amazing. So going to that land house, there's a land house called Plantation Home, and it's Habai, Habaai. I know it is Art Gallery Alma Blau, which means blue soul. It's a fantastic art gallery. You can just go in and walk around, but it's also a land house, and it's huge. Okay. You can just go into parts of it. There's another land house that's called, I want to say Jan Kook. That's a gallery.
Okay. I also remember enjoying the views from Fort Nassau.
Yes, Fort Nassau, and then Fort Riff also.
Okay.
Well, it's filled with shopping and restaurants in the evening. There's music outdoors, and there's beautiful views right from the seawalls there. So Fort Riff is on the Otrabunda side, which is on the west side, and Fort Nassau is on the Punda side, so that's on the eastern side of Willemstad.
Well, and there's basically the bay at Willemstad is almost a shamrock-shaped bay or something like that with a narrow entry, and these two forts guarded that narrow entry.
Exactly. And what connects it today is the only bridge of its kind It's a pontoon boat bridge, and it's the Queen Emma Bridge, and it opens for the ships to come in, and it's piloted because it's boats.
I did not know that. You're talking about the Great Big Bridge?
No, not the big bridge,
Okay,
but the bridge that's floating
Oh,
in
got
the
it.
middle of town.
Okay, I wasn't picturing that one. I was picturing the other one. Okay, interesting.
Yes, so it's really fun to walk over the bridge and stand in the middle of the bridge and take your picture on the bridge. It's also really neat to see the bridge in the evening. It's all lit up, different colored lights, and it's really nice to walk around on the Punta side where all the restaurants line the bay there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the colorful older buildings that you see so many pictures of? Am I in the right place?
That's the Punta side. But you know what? All of Curacao has colored buildings because there is a law for in town that nobody is allowed to have a white building because of the reflection is too bright from the sun. So you need to paint your building a color.
That is hilarious. I had never heard that. I did not know why they had to color buildings. Well, and of course, they also conveniently located the oil refinery down in that bay so that it can really add to your view. But
well, it hasn't been working for about a year.
Yeah, but
so that's been really nice, and that's because of what's going on with Venezuela.
So they were refining a lot of the oil from Venezuela. Okay.
All of the oil from Venezuela, but now Venezuela has cut off all ties with Curaçao. So
interesting. Excellent. Where else do we want to talk about in Curaçao?
Well, I talked about going to the west.
Yes.
And I didn't talk about going to the east.
Okay.
So if you go furthest east, there's a bay called St. Joris Bay. Mm-hmm. And if you like kiteboarding or you like to watch it, that's the place to go.
In other words, it's the windiest part of the island with very calm
nice
water.
Inland bay.
Okay.
So that's fun to watch. And then right near there is the ostrich farm.
Okay.
So you can go, they raise ostriches in Curaçao and they sell the meat to gourmet restaurants around the world.
Huh.
So you can also in the restaurant try the ostrich meat. Or
Which
you
is
could
a
go on the
red
tour.
meat, much to my surprise. It looks more like beef than it does like chicken.
Right, but it's a lot leaner than most beef that we would generally eat.
It's the other non-white meat.
I guess. And then they also have emus there, and they talk a lot about the mating and how they are raising them. So you can learn about ostriches and the emus. You can even ride one if you want.
I have seen them ridden in the camel races in Virginia City, and I wouldn't do it.
No, I don't think I would do it either.
They're dumb, for one thing. They are really not very bright.
The other thing you get to do, and if you take the tour, is you get to stand on an ostrich egg. They're enormous. And they want you to see how, they feel like cement. They're so heavy.
Huh.
They resist your weight. So it's an interesting tour. It's interesting to learn about it if you like to learn about the wildlife. Right near the ostrich farm is the Serena factory. So that is the Chi-Chi dolls. When you were in Curaçao for your one day, did you see the Chi-Chi dolls?
No, I did not see we did snorkeling when we were there. We did a sailing cruise with the Bounty, which was a sail ship out to the tugboat.
Oh, you went to tugboat. Okay, that's on the eastern side.
Yeah,
yes.
Which is a sunken tugboat. One of my favorite snorkel spots, if not my favorite snorkel spot in the world. In part because it does have this wreck that they intentionally sunk here, and there's not a lot of places you can go wreck snorkeling.
It's true. There is actually one. That one is shallower. There's one on Yantil Beach, too, and that's in about 20 feet of water.
Okay.
So it's a little deeper, but the water is so clear in Curaçao that you can see it.
Right.
But I do know that it's shallower at tugboat because I've been diving from a further point to tugboat, and as I came around the corner to Tugboat, I got kicked in the head by a snorkeler.
Yeah, that's about right.
So that does happen. So these are, Chi-Chi is what the oldest sister of a local family, usually those who are descendants of the slaves, the families that are descendants of the slaves.
Okay.
The oldest sister is called the Chi-Chi, and she is looked to almost like the mother of the family is looked to. So Serena has created this business where she has 60 local women. She does the Chi-Chi dolls in different formats, maybe 3 or 4 different types.
Okay.
And then the local women, the 60 local women, they come in and paint them however they want. So they're in these beautiful, bright colors. There's no two are the same, and they all have a story. So the factory, and also they have a little gallery, is out there near the ostrich farm on the far eastern, I want to say southeastern part of the island, and near St. Juras Bay. So there are 3 things to do on that eastern side. Then coming a little bit west is Jan Thiel Beach. And Jan Thiel Beach is a very European beach. It does have beautiful restaurants that back the beach. It has a huge infinity pool. There is a little dive shop, so I assume there's diving sites and snorkeling sites in that area as well. That is a fee beach, and you even have to pay to park your car there. Okay. There is a boat there, and it's a very nice beach as well.
And when you say a European beach, meaning that the people who are from Europe tend to congregate there, or it's got really bad sand and you have to rent an umbrella, or
yes,
what do you mean by European
probably
beach?
All of the above. Europeans tend to come there.
Okay.
For sure. That is one of the main beaches that Europeans tend to go to. Although you will find that Europeans are all over Curaçao.
Mm-hmm, sure.
And also there's not a lot of beach.
Okay.
So there's this infinity pool, and then just over the edge is the sea. And then to one side, there's a little bit of beach with some, I want to say, beds, like sunbeds that you can lie on, but you rent them.
Sure.
And then there's another part of the beach that's small where you can rent chairs as well. And there are little shacks where you can rent different kinds of equipment for boating for 1 or 2 people to go out and kayak or on a sunfish.
Got it.
And there's lots of little places to buy food.
Okay.
So that's Jan Thiel. And then now going, again, a little further east of that is Caracas Bay. And Caracas Bay is a free beach, and you'll probably see locals there. And what I haven't mentioned is that you shouldn't leave anything in your car. You can easily rent a car. It's really the best way to get away around the island. Cabs are very expensive, and tours tend to be high. You can do so much of this on your own if you don't want to go with a tour. But you do need to make sure you don't leave anything showing in your car. It's like any major city. You're not going to leave anything showing in New York City or in Paris or anything like that. You're taking a risk.
Okay.
There are locals at this beach, and this is the beach. You can just go out to the dock or swim off the beach and swim right to the tugboat that you were talking about, Chris.
Oh, okay.
That's a great snorkel beach. It's also a great place to dive from if you want to do a return trip dive. So the wall, as you turn the corner past the tugboat to the left, you can dive that wall up and back to tugboat. So that's one thing I haven't mentioned. There's a lot of great shore dives all over Curaçao. I think there are 70 dive sites altogether.
Oh, wow.
Some of them are boat only. So Guatemala, that I mentioned earlier, is a boat only. Okay. So coming back to the beaches. So then from there, the next beach down, and this is the biggest beach on the island, the longest one to walk, and it's called Mambo Beach. And every, I want to say, establishment along the beach has their own chairs. So you do have to pay an entry fee, and you do have to pay for the chairs. But I would recommend walking the beach to see what you like the best, which environment you want on this beach. You can even get one area, I think it's at Maduro Ocean, and it's gigantic sofas and restaurant and a big pool in the middle of the beach. I think for seats and entry, it's $9 US.
Okay.
So depending on what you like, there's every kind of iteration. And on Maduro Beach, there's usually music all day long. And in the evening and at happy hour, too, there's often live music. It also has a gigantic mall that is behind the beach. So there's every kind of restaurant you can imagine, all kinds of food, and anything you need for the beach. Also, you'll find Ocean Encounters at one end of the beach, and they're the biggest dive operation on the island. I want to say they are also probably the most professional. Not that the others aren't, they just are. And they have the most boats. They have 4 large boats. And they run all kinds of trips, specialty trips. We just went lion fishing with them. So lionfish are unfortunately not indigenous to our ocean area in the Caribbean or along.
We highly encourage you to fish for lionfish.
Yes. And they are delicious when you cook them, or if somebody else cooks them too. If you can get them in a restaurant, it's unusual. And if you like fish, I recommend that you order it because it's rare to get them in a restaurant. If you are in West Punt for dinner, there's a place called Soul Food, like Sun, S-O-L, Soul Food. It's owned by Sunshine and David. Sunshine's from New Hampshire. David's from Canada. They moved there, I want to say, 15 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that. And they wanted to provide food for the divers because there wasn't food, and they've built a restaurant up. So you can, if you just want hot dogs and hamburgers, you can get that there. But you can also get fish, and David hunts for lionfish sometimes. We used to go out with him to hunt, and when he has them, you should definitely order David's lionfish. They are the best. And I recommend Sunshine's brownies. They're the best brownies I've ever had. So Soul Food is open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you absolutely have to have a reservation.
Okay.
So that's all far west, coming back to the east side. So Mambo Beach, you can stay on the beach all day there, the rest of the day, and have your dinner, your music, your bars, all of it's there. There's even bars on the beach. It's really a typical islandy experience. And some of the beaches have outdoor showers. And also, there's indoor bathroom and changing areas all along the beach. So the other thing on Mambo Beach that's fabulous for land lovers, but people who like to see the sea, there's a Curaçao substation. So you can go down in a little submarine.
Okay.
I think to 500 feet. It might be deeper.
Wow.
I haven't done it, but it seems like a great way to see the sea if you're not a diver.
That would be unusual if they would go that deep.
I think they do go that deep, pretty deep. But it's the substation, and it's there at Mambo Beach, also called Sea Aquarium Beach. And so Sea Aquarium is there, so you can have all kinds of animal experiences, the dolphins, the sea lions. You can go in and pay the fee and spend the time at Sea Aquarium and be there for the different shows they put on. We were lucky enough walking around one day where we were crossing the bridge, just looking around, and they were putting on the sea lion show right across the water. So we got to see it and take some pictures without entering Sea Aquarium. But Sea Aquarium offers a lot of activities. They also work with Ocean Encounters, and you can dive with the dolphins or have different kinds of snorkeling and animal interaction experiences.
Okay.
So Sea Aquarium is also a great place to have, I want to say, some learning about the animals and also some controlled experiences for those people who aren't as comfortable just diving in the wild.
Okay.
So that is for the beaches, I would say, on the eastern part. I do want to say there are 60 beaches on this island, so you'll find a lot more if you want to search. I would say there's probably about 20 that are private to the hotels. But the rest of them, I think you can go on. Some you pay a fee and some are free.
Well, and I had reacted that I was surprised if they dive that deep at substation. 500 feet seemed way too deep for these. If they dive to 1,000 feet.
Oh, you just checked it. Okay.
Yes. It is not the usual kind of tourist sub that I was picturing as one of the reasons why I was quite surprised. That is very unusual compared to the the Nautilus subs that you find in a lot of different places.
And then for people who are not divers but like to experience the water and want to be on it, not in it, I would take a day trip to climb Curaçao. That's the little island that's about a 2-hour boat ride from Curaçao. I would say that's from Ocean Encounters. It's about a 2-hour boat ride.
Okay.
And there are several different companies that go. Mermaid is a big one. That's a big party boat. If you want a lot of people and a lot of alcohol and big barbecues, Mermaid's the one to go with. There's some smaller ones, like one that we used was Breezes, and they really had accommodated us. If anybody wanted to snorkel or dive or just go to the island, they were very flexible. Ocean Encounters does a trip there also, and I know there are many others if you research it. Okay. It's a cool little island to go to. It's uninhabited. There's a lighthouse there, and also there's a shipwreck. There are 2 shipwrecks, actually, that you can actually see from the shore. And beautiful white sand beaches. It's great snorkeling. This year, when we were there were turtles everywhere. That was a first for me to see the turtles there.
Interesting.
If you're into art, there are art galleries all over the island. There are artists apparently that are world renowned. If you go to Curaçao every other year, and I think it's the odd years. Okay. Usually it's the end of February, early March, as long as it doesn't interfere with Carnival, which is similar to Mardi Gras. They have the studios of artists all over the island open on the weekends, and you can just go to all the different, or whichever ones you want to go to. It's a really neat way to experience the different artists and their work. We did buy a multimedia piece one year doing that. Okay. It was a fun way to meet some of the artists and see how they translated their environment.
Okay. We're going to have a lot of people like me who are going to be just that one day in Curaçao, who are getting off the boat and who are listening to this, trying to figure out what to do. Is there a perfect one-day opportunity for someone like that? Of all the things you named, where would you send them?
Definitely go to Playa Grande to swim with the turtles. I think that's so unique.
Yeah, I could see that.
I would say have lunch at Cactus Cafe. If you get in really early and want to climb Cristofel, do that first and then go swim with the turtles. And then have your lunch at Cristofel at Cactus Cafe. The owner and cook is Taco. He's Swiss, and he's been living on the island for 28 years, and his wife is local. So they're nice and friendly. It's really a nice experience to talk with them and to eat in their restaurant. And from there, one of my favorite beaches to spend a day at is Curaçao. And that's a $6 US entry for, you can have 10 people in your car. It's $6. And then you pay to rent chairs if somebody comes by. Actually, we were just there the whole day. My husband and I dove, and my friend stayed on the beach. Nobody ever came to collect money for the chairs. So I don't know what they're doing. It's the island, and it's island time. But it is, a lot of people say it's the most beautiful beach on the island. I actually think Playa Canip is more beautiful. But often you will see commercials being filmed here. When we were there just a couple weeks, it was just 2 weeks ago, a clothing commercial for children was being filmed there, right on the edge of the beach. And it's a great place for snorkeling as well as diving. And they also rent kayaks and stand-up paddle boards. So it's really a fun place to spend the rest of your day after you've done the turtles and Cristofel and Cactus Cafe. They also have an outdoor bar restaurant. They do happy hour there. You should know most of the restaurants on the beaches, everything's fried.
Sure.
So I tend to bring my own lunch for that reason.
Excellent.
The other beach that I would go to if you want a gorgeous beach is Blue Bay, but that is a per person fee. I think it's $6 per person to get in.
Okay. I've got 2 wrap-up questions for you. Any last thoughts on Curaçao before I get to them?
Yeah. So one of the things I didn't tell you is that the cuisine is international. Apparently there are world-renowned chefs, and they cook up all kinds of tasty delights. So there's fantastic top restaurants all around Curaçao. especially in the Peter Mai section. And that's on the east side of Willemstad, considered Willemstad, but it's called Peter Mai. There's lots of restaurants there. They are more on the expensive side.
Okay.
Again, I still think that comparatively speaking, Cactus Cafe is better. I've had friends that have compared the number one restaurant in Curaçao to Cactus Cafe, and they think it's Cactus Cafe is better. But you do have world-renowned chefs in that Peter Mai area. I do have one other food place that I would recommend. It's right by Blue Bay.
Right.
It's in Piscadera, which is a bay.
Mm-hmm.
It's the next bay closest to Willemstad from Blue Bay. And it's called, ready for this? De Visserij. And it's spelled Devessirij. It means the fishery. It's all open air, as many of the Curaçao restaurants are. But it's all open to the sea, and it's got picnic tables with checkered tablecloths, and you go up to the window, and they catch all their own fish. There's a film where you can watch them catching the fish, and they have a board with all the fish that they have, and you can see them. They'll open their little refrigeration area so you can see all the fresh fish and pick what you want and pick how you have it cooked, and then you pick your sides. One of the local sides. Have you ever heard of funchi?
I don't think so.
It's like polenta, but it's corn-based. It's sort of like a cross between mashed potatoes and polenta.
Okay.
But it's a local food if you like to taste local foods. Cactus Cafe makes it one way. De Visserij makes it in another way. I recommend that you try it multiple places. My favorite there is the seared tuna. They cover it in sesame seed, the fresh tuna, and sear it, as well as the fresh cooked shrimp.
Excellent.
And if you have that and one drink, alcohol, it's usually under $40 for two people.
Excellent.
Yes, so it's very reasonable.
You're standing in the prettiest spot in Curaçao. Where are you standing and what are you looking at?
Well, the first thing I have is the wind's blowing through my hair.
Okay.
And for me, it's the sea. So I'm looking out at the sea. I'm on the beach at Blue Bay.
Okay.
The palm trees are blowing in the wind and the spring flowers are out. And the water is aqua and clear. Most of the time, unless there's big, heavy currents, the water is so crystal clear, it's just exquisite.
Excellent. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in Curaçao.
My husband and I were definitely a comedy routine, trying to catch the frog in our bedroom to get him out because everything's open air. You open your living room, your doors to your living room and your dining room so the breezes can come through and you do get the critters. So you'll get lizards sometimes and you'll get frogs. So that was definitely laughable trying to chase a frog, another time chasing a lizard.
Excellent. And then if you had to summarize Curaçao in just 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
I think blue.
Color, okay.
Exquisite.
Okay.
Breezy.
Excellent. Our guest again has been Wendy Blumenstein-Elliott from adventurousretirement.com. And Wendy, if we wanted to send people to your best post at adventurousretirement.com on Curaçao, where are we going to send them?
Why visit Curaçao is a good one.
Okay.
And I would say if you're interested in Curaçao, peruse them all. I bumped into somebody on the beach at Blue Bay. And we were talking and I told her about the website and she wrote to me the next day and said, "You're not going to believe it, but I used your article on Curaçao beaches to plan our trip."
Excellent. Wendy, thanks so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your obvious love for Curaçao.
Thank you, Chris.
I had a review of the show come up on iTunes this week. It says, "I'm a huge fan of travel podcasts and listen to them religiously. I listen to travel podcasts to be inspired and gather useful information to apply to my own travels. I enjoy the Amateur Traveler podcast because it's all about travel and not much else. I appreciate that Chris gets straight to the point. The subject matter is discussed without too much personal banter like many other travel podcasts. Chris is a great host, confident, calm, and I even enjoy his sometimes sarcastic tone. One should listen to the podcast as part of their travel planning process. It's also very good at taking you to faraway places when you physically can't travel at the moment. Thank you for your hard work, Chris. And that's from Creative Travel Type. And you are most welcome. And yes, I do have a sometimes sarcastic wit. I will own up to that. With that, we'll end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.
See one more cathedral, I got to sit in one more cafe. I know that I should be heading home, but maybe not